Good morning. Well, first of all, I would like to thank Joe for your kind invite for LTA to come here and share a little bit of our users, what we do, how we use GIS, and how hopefully we deliver the food and the goods to you. I'm Wee Shann. I'm looking after the technology as well as the road operations in LTA. I think when we talk about land transport, I'm quite sure almost everybody here have contact with land transport every day. And so it is not a strange topic, I would say. And quite often, we have more than experts among us. So what I show you here is that the land transport connects people and places every day. There are different modes of travel, but we know that we impact lives. And we have to get the job done. And we want to get the job done well every day. These are just some of the examples of our contact with our commuters, with our people. Some statistics basically to show that what we are looking at is really at urban scale. We support millions of trips taken in public transport. We support vehicular movement. And we have lots of assets that we need to keep it going so that we can deliver the good trips, good commuter experience, and overall an efficient system that support our economy. So we are very mindful of the tasks that we have to do. I want to share with you a little bit about Land Transport Master Plan. We have gone through just recently a budget debate on the transport portfolio, but I think it is still useful to share some key focus that we are working on for the next few years. We are refreshing this Land Transport Master Plan, but broadly, these three areas are still very useful to guide us. I'll just share a little bit of what we are going to do in different pillars, starting with rail. Rail is the backbone where we support large number of people moving around, especially during peak hours. We want to make sure that the rail network is comprehensive. We want to enable as many homes to be near to our MRT network so that it is within a 10-minute walking distance. And we are not done building. In fact, we are intensifying the building kind of program. We are going to complete the CCL Phase 6. We are going to complete the TEL. We are working on new rail lines like CRL. And in fact, looking forward, we are also doing some advanced engineering studies for new rail lines. So we are in a stage of fairly heightened construction work. This is on the rail side, but for the active mobility, likewise, we are not done building. We want to extend the cycling path. And we are probably about half of what we intended to achieve. There are a lot more to go. Within LTA, we often joke that our best seller is actually covered linkways. Most, if not all, the advisors come to us and ask for covered linkways because that enables the residents to walk to the transit nodes, to walk to some of the major nodes like markets, retail stores, and all those. And in our weather, that is a good way to promote walking and cycling. And so we'll continue to work on that. And we'll continue to also make sure that there is a good network where the buses kind of bring people to our MRT systems, but also bring them, hopefully, to a certain extent, point to point. And so the rail and the bus network are two very important land transport modes that we want to bring large number of people from one point to another. We are mindful that our demographic is aging, and in fact rapidly. And so within us, we ask ourselves, how can we support this broad notion of transport for all? How can we support the elderly to move around? Some of them may not be able to move around that well, may need wheelchair access and all. And so we work with agencies to ensure it is a barrier-free access within our transport network. We are mindful that as we work on all this, we also need to do our part for environment sustainability. So the healthy lives, safer journey is equally important. And that's where when we look at the vehicle population, even as we continue to push for walk, cycle, ride public transport as a green way to move around, we want to also do our part to make the vehicle population environmentally friendly. And that's why more than 5 years ago, we put a focus on electrifying the vehicular population. We put in place standards, safety standards. We hear the feedback that the charging network is not enough. We went ahead to put in the infrastructure so that it is no longer a chicken and egg issue. We put in place the infrastructure and we push for EV adoption. And that's because, number one, land transport is the third largest CO2 emitter within the nation. And second, we realize that we still have a sizable private vehicles pool, about 1 million vehicle population, and that a large part of the vehicles' emissions actually come from a few sectors. And so we are really working quite hard to push for this to being fully electrified. We are not there yet. In fact, even though for new vehicle registrations, more than 50% are electric vehicles, if you look at the total stock, it is less than 10% vehicle population. We have kind of finished building some of the slow chargers within the HDB car park, and we are moving on to now add fast charger hub, and we are considering even ultra-fast charger hub, working very closely with MTI, EMA, URA for some of the possibility. These are the broad plans. And as I said, we are entering, in our view, the peak of our construction. Because beside this, even on the roadside, we are building the North-South corridor, and we are looking at completing in a few years' time. Let's look at the assets. As we add new infrastructure to support the land transport movements, we are mindful that actually our asset base have grown and will continue to grow. Just to give you some snapshots of some of the assets we have here. These are the road assets, the commuter facility structures, further commuter infrastructures, and if you look at some of the nodes, bus shelters, lift and escalators, even down to the road furnitures like traffic lights, street lamps, and many other assets. You could now imagine that for LTA, who looks across the land transport in terms of planning, designing the systems, working with our contractors to build the infrastructures, and for certain parts, we operate and maintain ourselves. For example, the road infrastructures, or work with our operators to operate and maintain the assets that is owned by the government, for example, the bus and the rail aspects. So you could imagine that we have to grapple with a large assets. We have to make sure that the day-to-day operations is on time, on target, and this is the mission. And this is our mission that we need to accomplish. I would like to set this stage because it is then important for us to ask ourselves, how do we equip ourselves to get the job done? These assets, as I said, are constantly work in progress, working through the different cycles. To get within a certain domain, to get the data sorted out, it is one thing. To get the data to flow within the circle that you see here is an even more difficult task. But that is precisely what we need. Because if we don't get the data to be shared and eventually maintained by the various stakeholders, we are going to get a very messy and not a very good situation map. And we will probably be stuck with very manual work process. We will probably be stuck with insufficient information and thereby not leveraging on some of the key trends, for example, the use of AI to help in our work. And that's why we ask ourselves, how can we prepare for the next leg? How can we empower our people, maybe to be resilient, definitely, as well as future ready? I'd like to share with you some of the strategy that we have taken. A lot of it is still work in progress. So for the technology strategy, we remind ourselves that we have to focus on service delivery. We remind ourselves that the reason why we take on this is because we need to deliver what I've just said. The operations, as well as all the planning work, and maintain our assets very well. And from there, we distill that we need to get the data right. We need to get the data sorted out. A lot of it is actually the unglamorous work. It is the behind the scene, doing all the manual work or the spade work. It is not easy at all to make sure that, for example, our bus shelter location are all properly sorted out. And the reason is because we have one team doing the design work. It passed on to another team that is in charge of the building work. The building group work very closely with the contractors. And you would imagine that their first and foremost outcome is to deliver the goods, to deliver the infrastructure. What about the data and documentation? Usually, it is the last 5% of the contract. Probably by then, most of the building team would have already moved on to the new contract, move on to the new project. And usually the mopping up documentation is the last 5%, if it happen at all. If it happen at all. And to make things even more interesting, the user or the asset manager is typically another group, another team that is taking over the assets and then having to make sure that it is reliable, it is there and working all the time. And so you can imagine that the priorities are actually not very aligned if you want to cut across. And that's why we ask ourselves, to get it right, we probably have to go all the way to the basic. And the data strategy become an important one. And then we also need to strengthen our system, making sure that our systems have the correct interfaces, have the open architecture, so that the system are able to talk before we talk about AI, automation, and the capability to do so. And that's our strategy. With that in mind, we set ourselves this frame that maybe 20 years ago, Microsoft Office is fairly new to us, and then we embrace it, we use it, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and what have you. We ask ourselves, if we cast ourselves 10, 20 years from now, what are the basics that we need to work on? That we better work on it today. Not only making sure that the management team is aware and conversant of it, but also to percolate it down. And we say that we, in our business, probably need a GIS because lots of the information is geolocated. We need to know the location. Imagine a feedback telling us that, well, I would like to report a pothole is somewhere along Beach Road. It is not very helpful because I need to send my contractor down to scan the whole area, very inefficient. But if it could be geolocated, shared with the contractor, it's going to be very focused. Probably it's so seamless that we don't even need to go through LTA. That the feedback given by the public, plotted in, can straight away be attended to because we have a service level of 24 hours to get it right, at least for pothole remediation. And so time is of essence. So we say GIS, very important to us. We have a Planet, which is a common data warehouse. We also have BIM because, as I said, we do a fair amount of construction. And so building information system is going to be our front end. And then put into a data warehouse, hopefully integrated with GIS. And to complete the picture, we have our own knowledge management system for reports, for decisions made, and all those. If we get these 4 data storage right, we think that we at least organize the data in a certain way. Better still if data collections and data maintenance is part of the daily work. And that's what we set ourselves to do. I just want to give you an example of what we are working on. We have some success, but we are not done working on it. And that is how we use maybe a humble pedestrian overhead bridge as one asset class. And we ask ourselves, how do we get it right? Prior to this, our advisor, our MPs on the ground would like to understand the status of it. Have you called a contract? Is it late? Is it on time? What can I tell the residents? How can I update my residents? And so sometimes they call our community partnership team. And our community partnership team will then have to call, depending on what is the stage of the project, either our planning team, our design team, our building team. Very laborious. Maybe before that, they have to figure out, is this pedestrian overhead bridge going to be built by LTA or another agencies? You can imagine the iterations, the number of calls that they have to make. Second, before this, many of the information is actually kept within the individual laptop. Within the team, there will be 1 or 2 who are in charge, maybe in charge of the zone, in charge of the area, and they store all this dutifully in their Excel spreadsheet, which only the individual kind of know. If this person is on leave, not around, it's going to be very difficult to get a status update. So the first thing that we did is to see how we could put this information on cloud. And the second is to map out how do we allow this data to flow using GIS as a platform. We use the infra identifier as the reference point so that the team can move from one to another. We also ask the IT team to give them timely prompt because sometimes people can forget to update the status while they are busy with the physical work. And so there are prompts to say that maybe your database have not been refreshed in the last 6 weeks, in the last 2 months. Take a look. And I personally ask the community partnership team, please refrain from calling our engineering team. Let them do the work that they are supposed to do. You treat this as a single source of truth, have some trust, and let's do it. We have limited success in this. I say limited because I'm not happy until I see the full process done and expanded to many other commuter infra and beyond. But I want to share with you that it is not very glamorous, but it's extremely important to us because first, improve productivity. Second, it really helps us to deliver what it really means to the ground, to our stakeholders. And so, with this, we kind of connect the dots, we piece the puzzle together, and the benefits are really very evident. So making GIS easy is also about trying to kind of ask ourselves, for those who are not that initiated, layers and all those are good for the planners, for the users, which are very used to the system. But within LTA, we have about 7,000 staff and employees. For some of them to do a quick check is not easy. And that's why the team came up with Ask Ignite. I will let my colleagues to brief a little bit more, and so I shall not elaborate on this. But essentially, using LLMs, we make the query a lot more easier. I think harnessing GIS is one aspect of helping us deliver our project faster, reduce the service disruption through better asset management. I think a lot of it really depends on working together, because it is not just about creating the layer that matters. For us, creating the layers, the map is the first step. Maintaining it requires us to fuse this as part of our daily work, so that our colleagues don't see this as an extra step, but our colleagues see this as part of the daily work. This part of the process re-engineering is the one that we are focusing, and this part of it is the one that we believe are going to give us lots of benefits. And so with this, I will end off with what's next to us to prepare ourselves to be future ready. One of the areas that we are working on is, as I said just now, on the building side, we are using BIM. We want to see how to integrate a team BIM on GIS. We want to do away with other filing cabinets. We want to use this field information system, BIM, GIS, as a key filing repository. And then we want to proliferate this across. We're happy to share it within the government. For example, we spent quite a few years, LiDAR, scan, and all, to map out our whole road infrastructure and put it in a GIS platform. We want to share it with our colleagues within the public service, because as we use it, we refresh it, and this is the best way to make sure that the platform is ever ready. This is my last slide. Agencies, collaborations, making sure that we are still attuned to the technology advances, as well as constantly innovating within ourselves and with our partners. Right, with this, thank you. Thank you very much.